They said her name was Mercy, though no one in the frontier town of Dry Creek had ever shown her any. At 18, she stood on a frozen wooden platform with her hands clenched inside sleeves too thin for winter, her breath trembling into the gray air as men looked her over like livestock. Her father's debts had swallowed their land, then their home, then her future. The auctioneer's voice echoed against the boarded storefronts, calling out numbers that felt heavier than chains. Mercy didn't cry. She had learned long ago that tears only made men crueler. She stared at the mud between her boots and waited for it to be over. Then the bid stopped suddenly, not with laughter or drunken cheers, but with an uneasy quiet. A rancher stood at the edge of the crowd, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black hat pulled low. His coat was worn but clean, his eyes steady, not hungry like the others. "I'll take her," he said simply. No flourish, no smirk, just a statement. Someone laughed nervously and asked why a widower with 3 children would want another mouth to feed. The rancher didn't answer. He placed the money on the table, turned, and walked away as if the matter was settled. That silence followed him, stretching across the street like a shadow. Mercy was handed over like property, but something felt different. On the ride to the ranch, no words were exchanged. Snow fell thick and slow, the wagon creaking beneath them. When they arrived, Mercy braced herself for orders, for cruelty, for the life she'd seen other girls dragged into. Instead, the rancher helped her down from the wagon and said quietly, "My name is Elias Boone. You'll eat first. Then we'll talk." Inside the small farmhouse, 3 children watched her with wide eyes, 2 boys and a girl. All thin, all silent, Elias set a plate in front of Mercy before serving himself. She stared at the food, unsure if it was a test. "You're safe here," he said, not meeting her eyes. That night, Mercy slept in a real bed for the first time in years, confused and afraid, not knowing that what Elias Boone was about to do would shake the entire frontier and silence every man who had ever bid on her like she was nothing. And if this story already has you hooked, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because the truth behind Elias Boone is only just beginning. The next morning, Mercy woke before dawn out of habit, ready to work until her hands bled if that was the price of staying alive. But when she stepped into the kitchen, Elias was already there, packing lunches for the children, with the same care most men reserve for loading rifles. "You'll help if you want," he said, "but you don't owe me anything." Those words unsettled her more than cruelty ever had. Days passed, then weeks. Mercy cooked, cleaned, learned the rhythms of the ranch, but Elias never raised his voice, never touched her, never demanded anything beyond honesty. The children slowly warmed to her, especially the youngest, who followed her everywhere like a shadow. Town gossip spread fast, as it always did. Men whispered that Boone had bought himself a young bride. Others sneered that she wouldn't last the winter. Then one Sunday, Elias hitched the wagon and told Mercy she was coming to town. The same men who had bid on her before watched as Elias helped her, down in front of the courthouse. He walked her inside, where a clerk looked up in surprise. Elias placed papers on the counter and spoke clearly enough for everyone to hear. "This girl is free. These documents transfer full ownership of my ranch share to her name if I die. And this," he turned, his voice steady as iron, "is the deed releasing her from any claim over her life." The room went silent. A man scoffed, saying Elias was a fool. Elias faced him, eyes cold. "She was sold like a thing. I won't be the man who keeps her that way." Mercy's knees nearly gave out. She hadn't known freedom could sound like that. Simple, spoken, undeniable. Outside, the crowd parted without a word. No one laughed. No one mocked. The frontier had rules, unspoken but strict, and Elias Boone had just broken the cruelest one of all. That night, Mercy cried, not from pain, but from the terrifying realization that she could choose who she became. Elias told her she could leave in the spring, take the land, start anew. She asked him why he did it. He stared into the fire for a long time before answering. "Because my children deserve to see what a good man looks like." That answer traveled faster than any rumor, and by winter's end, the name Elias Boone was spoken with something close to reverence. If this chapter moved you, subscribe now, because the final chapter will show how one man's choice changed an entire frontier. Spring came late that year, but when it arrived, it brought more than green grass, it brought consequences. Other ranchers began freeing workers, paying fair wages, treating women and children like people instead of possessions. Some resisted, furious that Boone had made them look small without ever lifting a fist. One night, a group of men rode out to his ranch, torches in hand, ready to teach him a lesson. Mercy saw them first and ran to wake Elias. He stepped onto the porch alone, unarmed. The children stood behind Mercy, shaking. Elias didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply said, "You can burn my house, you can take my land, but you'll never take back what you've already seen yourselves become." The men hesitated. One by one, torches dropped into the dirt. By morning, the story had spread across the territory. Mercy chose to stay, not because she was owned, but because she was needed. Because she was respected. Because she had found family where she least expected it. Years later, when people spoke of the moment the frontier changed, they didn't talk about wars or gold. They talked about a quiet rancher who bought a girl only to give her freedom, and in doing so, stole the power from every cruel man who thought silence meant obedience. Mercy would go on to run the ranch beside Elias, teach the children, and help other girls find the courage to walk away from chains disguised as tradition. And every time a wagon passed through Dry Creek, people remembered that day at the auction, and the man who answered cruelty with dignity. Some stories entertain, others reshape the world. This was the latter. If you believe stories like this matter, subscribe to the channel, because there are many more powerful frontier tales waiting to be told.